Now, if you're thinking about the Vivo X200 or the X200 Pro, then this video is for you because I'm going to go over the differences of both of these, which are now global. Yes, we have the global release of the Vivo X200 series, which is one of my favorites this year. So I'll go over the differences in the screen, the designs of them, cameras, because this is where one of the key differences is, in the zoom camera, fingerprint sensors, loudspeakers, battery life, benchmarks will all be covered. So with both of these global versions, you do get the charger and a case included in the box, and I'll just quickly show you that. So there's our SIM tray tool. The cases we get are both a similar style, and great to see this. So it's a clear TPU case. There's a little bit of paperwork that is in there, and then we have our charger and cable. So in each side, you'll find one or the other. So this side here has the charger, okay? So UK plug here. It's their Flashcharge, and it will charge the phone. I'll show you later on in very quick times. And then the cable, so Type A to Type C. So you get the exact same thing with both of the models. So throughout this video, I will be comparing them and keeping the X200 is going to be on the left, X200 Pro will always be on the right, just to keep things simple. So let's go over these similarities because there's so much of these phones that is very common, super common in fact, and that is that the style of them is really quite similar. Now I have the silver here, which I really do like. I mean, look at it, how it reflects in the light of the X200 Pro. And then you get this sparkly style to the X200 Pro, well, the version that I've got. I think it looks good. Now both of them have 16 gigabytes of RAM, these two versions that Vivo sent out to me, and 512 gigabytes of storage. So both exactly the same. They're using the Dimensity 9400, very good chipset. And looking at the front screens here, so they're both AMOLED, and they both are LTPO, 120 Hertz, and 4500 nits peak, both of them. And I've tested them out in direct sunlight. You can see them now side by side. Really, I cannot tell any difference between them at all. Now, there is a slightly higher PPI with the Pro model, and it's barely noticeable. Sorry, not the Pro model, but our smaller X200. And that is that this one has 460 PPI versus 452. And again, now you cannot distinguish that. It's downright impossible to with the naked eye. They're both running Android 15, and we both have on them FunTouch OS. And this is FunTouch 15 now too. I prefer actually Origin OS that I had with the original Chinese version. I think it's just better optimized, feels a little bit snappier, quicker, but it's very good what we have here. App Store enabled on both of them, and you'll see that we've got front-facing cameras, 4K capable, 32 megapixels on both of them. And if we have a look down below, you'll see that we do have the SIM trays in the same location, Type C with video out support, loudspeakers, and yes, my SIM card tray, should I say, is missing because I just pulled that out. I don't have enough SIM cards for all of these phones that I'm currently testing. So both of them take nano SIMs, no micro SD card support, no 3.5mm headphone jack. IR transmitters at the top, metal frame on both is very good. You can see the microphones right there. Now, what I like about the Pro model is that the frame on it, this one, is not the shiny style. I mean, the shiny looks good, but I think it's almost a little too reflective. But it's a very good looking phone. And then the back with the camera modules, again, like really similar, but there are some differences here, and it's mainly the zoom camera difference. So we have the 200 megapixel 3.7 times zoom camera periscopic here with the X200 Pro, and with our X200, that is a 50 megapixel 3 times optical periscopic camera, and it's a bit of a difference. So there's a lot more megapixel count here for digital cropping we get here with the Pro model, and that's the real difference because they're using the same main sensor, 50 megapixels, same ultrawide, which is this camera right here, and the ultrawide's at the top on the X200, microphone on the rear you can see here, and I think the microphone on the other is on the top here. That's why we have that extra dot, and that's why it's not there, because the microphone with the Pro model is on the back. T-Star coding you can see on both of them, so Zeiss optics, and then our flashes right there. So that is the difference there. But what about now the weight of them and thickness? Slight difference again. So the Pro model, which is this one right here, slightly thicker, although you can't really tell the difference. It's 8.2 millimeters versus 8 millimeters. The weight of the Pro model is 223 grams versus 102 grams here if you have the glass back, which I have. Well, if you've got the carbon fiber, glass fiber back, slightly lighter too, at 197, but I don't have that model here. So there's not much of a difference at all. Can you tell when you're holding them? Oh, really, you can't. I mean, I can't tell in my hands here holding this a difference of around about like 20 grams or so. No. So they're pretty much the same there. The other is, of course, the screen size we have here with the smaller version, 6.67 inches versus 6.78 inches. And that's barely any difference. I really don't know why they kind of made these two models. And the other is the battery capacities. There are slight differences with them because we've got a slightly larger battery, 6,000 with the larger model versus 5,800. So again, like there's almost no difference, and I'll be showing you the exact battery life scores you can get from this with my fixed battery life test. So there is a difference with the fingerprint reader, and this is a big one. Their location for me is more ideal on the Pro. So the Pro has it here, which is a lot easier to get to. Now, this is an ultrasonic fingerprint reader, and it works 10 out of 10 times for me. We have the more older tech here with the non-Pro version, and it still is very good, but you see the location a little bit lower than it should be. It should be about here. It's a bit lower down, a little bit more uncomfortable. So tapping there, that then unlocks. And you'll see now I'm just showing you the screen resolutions that you can set for both of these. So you've got these two different options. So you can set to a high resolution, which I have. They call that Ultra HD, in fact, both of them. Very misleading. This is not a UHD resolution, and it's just full HD plus really on both of these. Or you can knock it down to 1080p on both of them for a little bit of battery saving. So gestures on both with FunTouch OS are working very well. That was me then with the non-Pro model. Very good, and both feel pretty much exactly the same, the UIs. As expected, same RAM capacity, same chipset, same storage too. So they're all really the same. No point me continuing on with the screens because they are really the same. It's just that difference with the fingerprint reader is the big one. So there are some things that the X200 does lack that may be deal breakers for some people. Now, there's no wireless charging with the non-Pro model. The other big one is the Type-C port, okay? So it doesn't have video out. If you need the video out, if you're going to be, say, using this as a gaming console and you like to plug it into a TV or a monitor, well, it's missing with this model. And the display, okay, as I pointed out, the optical fingerprint reader, but I believe this does not have LTPO tech as well with the display. That means that the refresh rate isn't going to lower right down. This is another thing that really annoys me. We get no 8K with the non-Pro version and no Dolby Vision. And why does it make no sense? Well, they have the same hardware. They've got the same main camera. They have the same chipset, the same RAM. So this is just a software-only limitation that Vivo has applied. They need to get their act together. Give the non-Pro version 8K and the Dolby Vision. Give it a firmware update and add that. Now, the firmware on both models is the same. They've got the same amount of bloatware. I do wish that Vivo would tone down a little bit because we've got like TikTok and a few other apps like Trip.com and whatnot that, they should probably be including that because we can decide for ourselves what apps we want. They both have firmware updates out of the box, and Vivo lately, I've had their Chinese version and some of their other global phones have been very good with their updates. We get quite a few now, so a lot better than what they used to be like at least. And the Antutu score here, very, very similar. The Pro is actually a little bit slower, but there's nothing in it. I mean, we're talking like next to nothing there. It doesn't really matter. They're really the same when it comes to the Antutu score. However, storage, I noticed that it would always be a bit faster, the X200, and that's probably just down to the storage chips. Okay, that's just a slight difference. You're going to get always from different batches, slight differences. So again, wouldn't base your decision on this at all because really they're identical. Thermal throttling, basically identical as well. I thought that the larger version would be a lot better, maybe because it's got a bit more cooling. However, it was only 0.6% better. That was really it. I mean, when you look at the scores too, they're very, very similar, and where they start to throttle is about the same. Same for the thermals. So both of them got up to similar temperatures. So 41, actually cooler the smaller version, which is a little bit of a surprise, and 43, but 2 degrees. I mean, there's hardly anything in it. And when I game, I've noticed that the thermals are very good because of the throttling. They're lowering that performance down, so it's pretty good. When gaming, I am seeing just warm to the touch temperatures, and it's around about 40 degrees on both after 30 minutes of gaming, which is good. Both have widevine level 1 certs, as you'd expect with the firmware, and battery life. Yes, slightly better actually with the smaller battery capacity, but 6,000 milliamp hours versus 5,800, not that much in it. Now, this is not a realistic test, of course, but it's a looping battery test. Both were set to the same brightness, so that's why the score there is so similar, of course, with the same hardware, RAM, and everything else. And then we have our charge time. So on both of them, there's for some reason a weird difference here. So again, the non-Pro version, slightly faster, 39 minutes to fully charge from 17%, and from 17%, 46. But, of course, the extra 200 milliamp hours. That's the difference. That is why it's a little slower. But honestly, I thought that it would be 1 or 2 minutes, not 7 minutes difference here. Not that, again, it matters because both are very quick. So voice calls on both of them the same. I've noticed the haptics seems to be exactly the same as well. It's not bad, the haptics, but I have definitely used better with them. What I have detected, however, is that the loudspeakers, I'm pretty sure they would have the same hardware, and I was expecting maybe because it's slightly larger, we could have a little bit better speakers in the Pro version, but it's, again, the X200 that has the slightly better speakers, just a little bit more volume. Hopefully you're going to hear and be able to detect this from my sample that I'm going to play now on both of them. So I'll start out with the Pro, and then I'll move over to the X200. Really, it's very hard to tell the difference. There's hardly anything in it. When it comes to the video performance between both of them, the X200 Pro and the X200, they are identical in the video performance with the front-facing cameras, main cameras and ultra-wide. The only difference is the zoom cameras, that you get the 3.7 times optical zoom with the X200 Pro, and you have the 200 megapixel camera versus the 50 megapixel. Apart from that, what I'll show you now is really identical. So this is the ultra-wide. This is the X200 Pro I'm using. Electronic image stabilization, 50 megapixels. Our main sensor, 50 megapixels, f1.6, and this is the same sensor used across both of the models, just like the ultra-wide I showed you before. And then we have now the 3.7 times optical, and you get 3 times with just the X200. I'll take it up to now 10 times zoom. Look at the castle here of Denia in the background, and I can see clearly those people up there just walking past that fence. Stabilization is good. Back to the 3.7 times and over to the main camera and an ultra wide again. So you can see you got a nice zoom range there, a lot of flexibility if you wanted to zoom in close. Then I would go for the X200 Pro for that slightly better optical zoom camera. And then 200 megapixels is definitely going to help when it comes to digital zoom. Again, this is 10 times. I'll stop walking. You can clearly see the registration of boats, names of boats here. So not bad for 10 times, although the quality does drop off compared to the 3.7, which I've gone back to. Now this is something that the Pro also does have, and that is 8K and Dolby Vision. I'm currently shooting in 8K. Now, a lot of people will probably never use 8K because of the ridiculous file size. It gives you sharper footage if you scale it down to 4K, or it will let you crop in quite a lot and still keep that quality. And for comparison, this is now the X200 non-Pro 4K, so no 8K, no Dolby Vision. However, I wanted to point out that this is still very good quality, and the microphones they've used on both of these X200 models is excellent, very good quality. Okay, onto the stills. So first up, I'm going to focus on the Pro model here. So this is the Super Macro, but the Super Macro with the non-Pro is very similar to the results. A little bit oversaturated, but plenty of details. This is 3.7 times optical zoom, and it looks excellent. And I'll show you when I crop in. This is a 200% crop now. And look at all those details retained there, all those different shades within Snow's eye, all the individual furs, and natural background blur. That bokeh is not artificial. This is the ultra wide, which is pretty much exactly the same with the non-Pro model because it's the same sensor, same processing, main camera too as well, exactly the same across both of the models. Low light photos, the results are excellent across both of them, so pretty much exactly the same. Now, if you crop in, you're going to see a little bit of noise. I noticed that there is definitely some noise coming in, a little bit of over sharpening as well. I wish they would tone down on this. Even so, probably one of the best phones out there that you can get for low light photography. The other area where it definitely excels is the portrait mode. Very good stitching, nice skin tones, and it's good to note that now with the global ROM version, Fun Touch, instead of Origin OS, skin smoothing is not happening, because with the Chinese ROM, if you disable it, it would still apply the skin smoothing. But here with the global ROM, disabling all beautifying, you don't get that at all. And selfies, they do look excellent. So if you're really into taking a lot of selfies and portrait photos, I believe the X200 Pro or the X200 is the phone to go for. Now, if you do go crazy with the zoom, this is currently 10 times. That's fine, it looks usable. 30 times starts to turn into an oil painting. And then when I took it up to 50 times, definitely oil painting. And that's not a usable photo for me. I mean, some people still like this, but really, I don't personally think that's a usable photo. Side by side, you can see now the difference between the Pro model and the non-Pro. So we're looking at a focal equivalent of 85mm versus 70. So if you like to get slightly closer, then the X200 Pro is probably the better phone to go for, and it's got a lot more room to crop in digitally. However, for portrait photos, I think the 3x zoom, the 70mm, is a bit of a sweet spot there. All these samples I am showing you are using the Zeiss Natural Color preset. So I took both of them up to 10x zoom now, which is a combination of both optical and digital zoom. And you can clearly see that it's the X200 Pro that pulls ahead slightly. And now I've cropped in 200%. You can start to see the differences there. As for gaming performance, well, they are both pretty much identical, and I really do like this Dimensity 9400. The chip runs really cool with the cooling that Vivo has. You can play this game for an hour and it just gets warm. Whereas I find that the Snapdragon 8 Elites, the phones I've tested at least, they get quite hot, some of them. They will get up to 50 degrees, 49 degrees Celsius with similar kind of performance. Although, yes, we do get quite a bit of throttling with this. Now, if you want the absolute best in gaming performance, it still is a gaming phone like the Red Magic 10 Pro. However, you're not really going to notice that difference unless you demand the absolute top performance. Maybe some demanding emulators or something like that. Otherwise, it is very good with the Dimensity 9400, the experience with the 6GB of RAM on the Vivo X200 series. So there we go. As I showed you in this video, the difference really is down to the zoom camera, the 3.7x 200 megapixel camera of the Pro right here, versus the 50 megapixel 3x. Now, if you do need the absolute best zoom camera, by all means, go for the X200 Pro. And if you want the better fingerprint reader, this has it. But that is really the only big differences there. As I pointed out, that there are some minor things with benchmarks that you would never notice unless you run these synthetic benchmarks that the X200, the non-Pro version, does have. Now, I prefer the size of the X200 versus the Pro, which is slightly larger. I like this marginally compact size here, and the speakers, as I pointed out, are a fraction better, but that wouldn't be the reason why I'd go and get it. So if you don't need to have the zoom performance, I would say go for this. Go for the Vivo X200 Pro instead. And you can also think of this video too here is my follow-up for the X200 Pro model, because I reviewed the Chinese version. Well, I did a 24-hour review. Now I've got the global version as I waited, and this really summarizes it all. It's an excellent flagship. If you want to have possibly the best zoom performance, it's the phone to go for. And it's a very well-rounded, balanced phone. Battery life, the performance, and what I'm seeing, and I really do like that Dimensity 9400 chipset that both of these flagship phones do have. So thank you so much for watching this review comparison of the Vivo X200 series.